Welcome to Steps to Publishing Your Comprehensible Reader, brought to you by What's Your Next Step? I'm Annie Ewing.
And I'm Kirsten Plante.
Kirsten and I are comprehensible input-based teachers of Spanish and French, CI teacher trainers, and trainers of CI teacher trainers. But more importantly for this video, I am a copy editor and proofreader of comprehensible readers in French, Spanish, English, and one Italian. And I'm based in the Philadelphia area and the United States.
I design and publish comprehensible readers in Dutch, English, French, Spanish, Gaelic, Danish, and Russian. And I also publish handbooks and materials for teaching with comprehensible input. Now, neither of us has ever written a CI novel, but between the two of us, we have edited, translated, proofread, designed, and published over 100 CI novels. So we are here to share our experience with you and walk you through 20 steps to get that novel from your desktop into your reader's hands. Step 1. Write your manuscript. Now, the one thing we're not going to give you advice on is how to write your manuscript. The best advice you can get at this point will come from other authors. So why not join a writers group online or maybe live in your neighborhood? And there's also a lot of useful information like tutorials on how to write by well-established authors online and in print. At the end of this video, you will find a QR code that takes you to a document where we will share a recap of this presentation and links to other helpful documents and tutorials, including help for this step. So, find the writing method that works for you and write your novel. We will help you with what comes next.
Step 2, read your manuscript. Once you've finished your first draft and said, "Yay, it's done," it's not. And as much as you may want to get rid of it now, take a deep breath and read what you've written. Read it once straight through, just for the feel of it. Read it out loud. You'll hear how the sentences flow together, and you'll notice when they don't. Pick one character and read it again, tracking that character's development. Do it over for each character in the story. Read it again and look to see who's represented in your story. Are they represented accurately, fairly, respectfully? Then review your timeline. When the sequence of your story is clear, readers feel confident that they're understanding not just the story, but the language of the story. Our tutorials on character development, story consistency, and representation will help you develop lists of things to think about each time you read your manuscript.
Step 3. Rewrite your manuscript. As you read and reread, write notes to yourself, and then go back and rewrite. Make it better. Work on those spots that didn't feel quite right. Can you tweak a word or two? Or do you need to rethink a whole plot thread? Your changes may be cosmetic, but it's more likely that they will involve major surgery, cutting things out, moving things around, maybe adding or deleting whole new sections. The deleting of sections is called kill your darlings because you may need to take out your favorite character or an entire plot thread, just because it doesn't really work in this story. And when you've rewritten a fragment, read through the whole text to see if anything else needs to change, because everything in a book or in a story is interrelated. Also, run a spell and grammar check. Do some basic formatting to get it ready for the next stage. Adjust your paragraphs, line spacing, tabs, indentation, justification, things like that. Our tutorials on quick formatting, word count, simplification, and clarification will help you with this step You want to make your manuscript clear and pleasant to read, because the next stage is...
Step 4, share with a friend. Ask a colleague, friend, or partner to read your manuscript and give you feedback. Margarita Perez Garcia refers to her trusted circle of readers. Receiving and accepting feedback is not always easy. Being able to move from vulnerability to trust is crucial at this stage of the writing process. So create a list of things you want readers to think about as they read. Mike Pito has this wonderful critical checklist for writers of CI novels that might give you some ideas. When you frame the feedback, you are in control of the feedback situation and can ensure your own emotional safety. You'll repeat this sharing step several times throughout the process from desktop to publish, widening your circles of readers and your circles of trust, from friends and family to total strangers. Our tutorials offer strategies for framing the feedback at each step along the way. Step 5, rewrite your manuscript. So now you've made that leap. You've entrusted something that you value to another person. You've framed the feedback you want to receive from that trusted reader. And now, take another deep breath. In Braving the Wilderness, writer Brené Brown exhorts us to receive feedback with curiosity, not defensiveness. Your first reader's reactions should lead you to rewrite, rearrange, and even delete parts of your story. Hear what your readers have to say and decide what you want to do. Remember, how and whether you implement a reader's feedback is always your decision. But also remember, you asked for their thoughts. We'll help you revise and rewrite your manuscript with tutorials on incorporating feedback, comprehensifying, next-level formatting, and developing dialogue.
Step 6, share with native readers. In our experience, the native reader first reads for correctness of language, and this is considered light editing. Your native reader may also have insights about the story itself, and of course, your native reader may be your cultural consultant and can help you to represent the people and culture in your book accurately and fairly. Framing the feedback you want to receive is again essential here. Instruct your native reader so that they understand what you're trying to achieve, what the purpose of your book is, and what your audience is. And then also think about how you want them to provide feedback. Our tutorials on framing the feedback will help you instruct your native readers. Step 7, rewrite. You will surely make corrections and adaptations based on your native reader's feedback. However, be careful. If your native reader suggests replacing a word on page 13, but doesn't say anything about that very same word that occurs on page 26, why is it? Is that because it doesn't apply on page 26? Is it because they didn't see it there? Or is it because your native reader assumed that you would propagate the correction throughout the whole manuscript? Since you don't know, it's wise to get in touch with your native reader and ask what their ideas are about it. Our tutorials on incorporating feedback, staying comprehensible, and next-level formatting will help you as you use your native reader's feedback to rewrite your manuscript.
Step 8, comprehensify. If you haven't done it yet, this is the moment to do a word count. We use an online text analyzer to determine both overall word count and word frequency. The list produced by this analysis can help you look for opportunities to simplify, clarify, or eliminate low-frequency words if needed. It will also help you notice whether the feedback you've been getting from your readers has consequences for your word count. What if a reader's suggestion leads to adding new words to your story? Can you simplify somewhere else by eliminating a less useful word? We have several tutorials to guide you as you comprehensify your manuscript, dealing with word count, clarifying, and simplifying.
Step 9. Create a glossary. But before you do that, think about this. What is the purpose of your glossary? For us, when we look at a comprehensible novel, we imagine a reader who gets so wrapped up in the story that they don't want to stop and look something up. And when they do, it's because they absolutely have to understand a particular word to move forward. So the glossary has to provide just the right meaning to them as quickly as possible and let them go back to the story. No grammar lessons, no assumptions, just the meaning. Our detailed, hands-on, step-by-step tutorials on creating your glossary will help you think about what words to include, how to provide the appropriate meanings, what format, font, and page layouts you want to use, and how to make the best choices for your novel and your audience.
Step 10, send to pilot classes. Ask one or more teachers to pilot the manuscript with students. This is a valuable step in the process, as it yields important feedback on the readability, comprehensibility, and the appeal of your story for your target group. It may also yield corrections on the language, recommendations for appropriate level of the novel, and suggestions for improvement of the story. Remember to frame the feedback with pilot classes as well. Do you want to have students look for certain things, act out specific scenes, respond to questions, mark passages that they like or find confusing, or just give a thumbs up or thumbs down? We will suggest strategies for piloting your manuscript with students in our tutorials on framing feedback.
Step 11. Rewrite again. Remember, receive feedback with curiosity, not defensiveness. Your students' responses are really important as they best reflect your eventual audience. So if they are confused or offended, or if they don't think a certain character is believable, take them seriously and do something about it. Or if they don't get the language, if they're not sure who's talking, or they can't figure out who or what a certain pronoun refers to, you need to think about how to make it work for them. Your students' reactions should also lead you to rewrite parts of your story, perhaps even rearrange it completely. And if what they say is, "Oh, I love it, don't change a thing," find some other student readers. Our tutorials on comprehensifying, representation, and dialogue development will guide you on this step.
Step 12, send to a copy editor. A copy editor is a trained professional that you send your manuscript to for nitty-gritty editing. This is the step that many writers and readers call proofreading, but it's not. It's copy editing. Copy is the manuscript. In our comprehensible reader universe, as you've seen already, there are several levels of review by friends, native readers, students. At each level, you may receive feedback on language as well as content. A professional copy editor, who also happens to be a proficient speaker of the language of the text, will dig deeper and focus more on the details. As a copy editor myself, I check grammar, usage, spelling, punctuation, consistency of style, consistency of characters and storyline. I fact check. I think about word frequency. And as a former comprehension-focused language teacher, I also put myself in the place of a student reader and notice spots where clarification is needed. This is more substantive editing.
Step 13, revise your manuscript. Now that you've had a professional copy editor review your manuscript, remember to accept feedback with curiosity and not with defensiveness. Aside from typos, spelling, punctuation, and grammar, which always must be corrected, you hold the ultimate decision about your writing. However, a professional copy editor is a professional. They know what they're doing. So it's always good to take a copy editor's suggestions seriously. Be sure to listen and make a reasoned decision whether or not to accept them.
Step 14, revise the glossary. Each time you revise your manuscript, be sure to update the glossary to reflect anything that has been added, deleted, or changed. Since you are deeply familiar with how words are used in the story, it's best to do this while the changes are fresh in your mind. Then you'll know when an entry in the glossary doesn't sound quite right and where to look in the story to find it in context. The search function is your best friend for this job. If you're looking to simplify your novel, this editing stage provides another important opportunity to find words that may be reused, deleted, or replaced. Our glossary tutorial will guide you here as well.
Step 15, instructions to your illustrator. Your novel is not just about text. Illustrations can play an important part in your story, whether it be for the look and feel of the book or to comprehensive stuff. Now, whether your illustrator is a student, a friend, maybe yourself, or an artist you hired on a work-for-hire site like Fiverr.com, there's a whole process to deciding where you want illustrations and what you want them to do for your story. Do you want them to support the meaning in the text or to provide additional information? Are they there just for atmosphere? Now, a good communication between you and your illustrator is crucial here. And we offer a hands-on tutorial to guide you through this process of communicating your needs to your illustrator.
Step 16, insert illustrations. As you or your book designer insert the art your illustrator has provided, think carefully about where the pictures go and revisit your original intentions. Do they actually do what you wanted them to? Also, think about how you want the images placed on the page. Do you want them to occupy a full page or part of the page? Go all the way to the edge or leave some white space? Do you want text to flow around an image? Does the image fit on the page with the text it accompanies or on the page opposite? You may still need to be in communication with your illustrator to get things just right. We'll walk you through the options in our tutorials on illustrations and designing your book.
Step 17, design your book. There's a lot to know about creating a look and feel that will keep your reader's eyes on the page. We may be able to distinguish a pleasing format from an unpleasing one, but then don't necessarily know what makes them that way. Is it the font size, the font choice, combination of fonts, spacing on the page, etc., etc. The formatter of your book can be you. It can be someone you know who's good with Word or a design program, or you can hire a professional book designer. Amazon, Ingram Spark, and Lulu, which you see behind me, they all have information pages about designing your book, but they leave a lot of wiggle room for you to decide how you want it to look. If you're going to self-format and self-publish, it's really worth educating yourself on some of these design skills. And I highly recommend a Creative Indie that you see there. It's a website made by a book designer who has a lot of tutorials, formats, and blogs and tips and tricks for designing a book. At this point, we are not going to offer a tutorial specifically on book design, but we will provide you with resources to educate yourself.
Step 18, send to proofreader. Now is when you need a proofreader. The proofreader works with a formatted facsimile of the final product, a proof, hence the term proofreading. Back in the day, we called this camera-ready copy. It is the final version of your book as it's ready to go to press. Proofreaders don't usually suggest major changes to the story. Those should be made by now. We look for line and page level, text and formatting issues, and we make sure the material is ready for publication. Typos, punctuation, and spelling, consistency of margins, indentation, justification, page breaks, placement of illustrations, headers and footers, page numbering and table of contents, the glossary format, the front matter, the back matter, the cover copy. All of these things need one last set of eyes before your manuscript, now nearly a book, goes to press.
Step 19. Enter final revisions. This time around, you should probably make all of the changes that your proofreader suggests. If suggestions have to do with something you hired someone else to do, such as your illustrator or formatter or copy editor, don't hesitate to consult with them about making changes. In the absence of an editor or publisher, it can be helpful to stay in communication with your copy editor or proofreader as you make decisions in this last phase. Step 20. Finally, publish. If you are publishing with Amazon, Ingram Spark, Lulu, or some other printing-on-demand platform, their websites will walk you through the steps to get your book published. Also, talk to other authors who've done this for tips on what to expect and what to avoid. And again, Creative Indie, which I mentioned before, also offers step-by-step guidance for this part of the process. We will have a short nuts and bolts tutorial to talk you through the essential steps of self-publishing.
So here's the whole process, seen through 4 lenses. We put on the read and rethink lens to be reflective about our writing. Revise and rewrite is active and creative. Dare to share is where the process leaves your hands temporarily and you trust others with your work. And format and design is a creative hands-on stage that uses a whole different part of your brain and can be a welcome relief from the language-focused activity of the other phases. Kirsten likes to call this knitting. You'll find that walking through the 20 steps is not always a forward progression, and the steps don't always occur in the order we've presented them. You'll move from one phase to another, first in sequence, then in reverse, then in cycles as your manuscript matures. That's all part of the process. Here are those 4 lenses, showing where all the elements of the 20 steps fit. These are all skills and practices that we support in our tutorials. Just as the steps are not linear, the practices viewed through these lenses cannot be tackled in sequence. They're all interwoven in the process. So, for example, when we look at our writing through the format and design lens, we might be at an early step, applying a basic format before sharing a manuscript with a friendly reader. Or we might be ready to publish and we're applying the finishing touches to create a reader-ready piece of literature. Our tutorials will focus on each step through different lenses and apply each lens to different steps. We will be releasing our first tutorials in the coming weeks, adding a new tutorial every few weeks.
While 20 steps may seem like a long journey from the end to publish, remember that each step is a part of the creative process. One by one, step by step, they make your book clearer, more engaging, more visually appealing, more reader-friendly, more culturally responsive, and more comprehensible. Simply put, they make your book better. Readers may not realize that you've taken this long journey to get your story into their hands, but they often notice when you don't. So do it for them. Do it to provide appealing, compelling, comprehensible novels for language learners.
And do it for yourself, because when they love your first book, they'll come back for the next one. This link and QR code take you to a recap of the strategies outlined here and information about other tutorials and resources you may find helpful along your journey. You'll also find a checklist you can use to keep track of your steps from the end to publish. So tell us, what's your next step?
If not, you can also hire an illustrator on like work for hire websites like Fiverr here. Fiverr here. Okay.
So tell us. So tell us, what's your next step?